Nighttime was approaching, and Halgrim the Bjorn, Vikings captain and war-hardened survivor of 1,000 blades, entered his tent after a long voyage back from Vilgard, reached for his horn of fermented milk and blood, and took a swig. It was thick, sour, comforting. He stared at the dark canvas of his tent ceiling, silence, and then a scream. High, wet, not the scream of pain, but of disbelief, of someone who'd seen something their mind couldn't shape. It came from the east side of camp. Another followed, shorter, gurgled, then more, 2, 3, and then a chorus. Halgrim was already on his feet, axe in hand, roaring for his guards. Up shields, damn you! Wake up, something's in the camp! But no reply came, just the sound of tearing. Something shuffled against the tent wall, too light to be a man, too deliberate to be wind. Halgrim's breath thickened in his chest. He slashed the tent flaps open and stepped into the cold night. Mist. It clung low like a crouching beast, coiling around boots, swallowing light. Torches had fallen. Embers sparked and hissed on the snow-packed earth, but gave no warmth, no glow. And then he saw it. A man, Eorl, one of his veterans, stood swaying. His hands clutched his own face, nails digging into skin. Blood ran down his cheeks in black rivulets. Eorl! Halgrim shouted, striding forward. The man turned. His face was wrong, as though melted and rearranged by hands that did not understand bone or mercy. His eyes were on his chin, his mouth where his cheek should be, and it was smiling. The thing that used to be Eorl let out a sound like laughter and collapse, limbs twitching. Behind him, movement. Halgrim turned just in time to see another shadow sprint through the fog, unnaturally fast. A scream erupted from one of the warriors' tents, followed by the gurgling clatter of steel and blood hitting the ground. He stepped back, not from fear, but instinct. And yet, even he, Halgrim, the unyielding axe-bearer, felt a quiver in his gut. These things didn't fight, they played. They waited to be seen. They fed on the scream more than the wound. Suddenly, the mist trembled. Not from breeze, from something bigger, something approaching. He raised his axe and for the first time in years whispered a prayer. The prayer barely left Halgrim's lips before the mist answered, not with words, but with movement. All around him, the fog pulsed like a living thing. Shapes darted between the tents, swift and barely visible, their outlines slippery like smoke given form. Warriors stumbled from their shelters, blades in hand, eyes wide with confusion. Some cried out, some called for orders, others simply screamed. Halgrim moved like a bull through snowdrifts, barking commands. Form a line, back to back, use the fire for light. But few obeyed. The men couldn't see what they were fighting. And worse, the moment they did, they died. He saw one of his shieldmen, scarred it, lock eyes with something just a few paces from the fire pit. The light caught it for a breath. It was thin, long-limbed, eyeless, its skin shifting with unnatural slickness. Its fingers were too many. Its mouth stretched too far. Scarde didn't scream. He crumpled, his skin bubbling, his face collapsing like wet paper. The creature skittered away, laughing in a voice that didn't belong in this world. Halgrim's heart pounded. Varan, he growled under his breath. Where are you, boy? As if summoned, hooves thundered across the snow, and Varan appeared on horseback, his cloak trailing behind like storm clouds. The wrath marked his skin in glowing runes, pale blue lines flickering beneath the folds of his fur-lined armor. His eyes, those eyes gleamed with cold fury, seeing through the mist like lanterns in a crypt. He dismounted in a single motion and landed beside Halgrim. Father? You brought this? Halgrim barked, axe bloodless in his grip. No. Varan's voice was low, but I know who did. The mist recoiled from him, just slightly. Varan turned his gaze to the night sky. This isn't the land's vengeance. This is something older. Another scream, brief, wet. A warrior ran past them, only to collapse mid-stride, his body hollowed as if something had scooped out his insides through his mouth. Varan gritted his teeth. We need fire, as much as we can burn. They come from the dark, Halgrim muttered. But not like beasts, they enjoy this. They feed on fear, Varan whispered, and they hate the sun. As if on cue, the eastern sky began to pale, the first hints of dawn pressing against the stars. The monsters shrieked, the mist twisting violently like a hive disturbed. The air ripped open with unnatural howls. The figures scattered, melting into snowdrifts, into trees, into nothingness. And then, silence. Just the moans of the wounded, the crackle of dwindling flames, the snow, stained with blood. Halgrim lowered his axe. Gods. Varan stepped forward, looking to the trees, jaw clenched. not gods. He turned to his father. This was Kaelor's doing. Halgrim stiffened. Kaelor? That priest child who wandered into the Mern caves to play shaman? No longer a child, Varan said, his voice edged with iron. He's no longer priest, no longer man. Something has taken root in him. Something old, something that does not belong to this world. Halgrim spat into the snow. Then he should have stayed in the caves. Next time, I'll put an axe in him and bury the rest. But Varan wasn't listening anymore. He moved through the dying mist, eyes scanning the wreckage of their camp. Dozens were dead. Some had no wounds, just frozen in place, their eyes wide, faces twisted in that same final expression of fear. Others had contorted faces, stretched skin, as if something had tried to carve terror into flesh. He crouched near one of them, touching the frostbitten ground. Cold still pulsed from it. Not natural cold, but a void. Alira appeared beside him like shadow following light. She hadn't been seen during the attack. She never was when the wrath stirred at its most violent. Her cloak rippled even when the wind didn't move. Her expression was grim. It was them, she said softly, the hollowed ones. I know, Varan replied. And Kaelor, she added, her voice like a low funeral bell. He offers them more. Varan stood. Where? South. Past the Forest of Bones, past the Salt River. He's found a land with no memory, no guardian. He's feeding its souls like kindling to a dying flame. Halgrim scoffed. And the gods let this happen? There are no gods where Kaelor walks, Alira whispered. Halgrim turned to Varan, nostrils flaring. And what, you expect me to chase ghosts? Burn villages looking for shadows? This is a trick. A test of will. We regroup, rebuild. If Kaelor wants war, he'll find we still know how to wage one. No. Varan's voice was sharper than his blade. If you go as you are, your men will die. You saw what they sent. That wasn't Kaelor's army. That was his distraction. Halgrim didn't answer, but he clenched his axe harder. Let me go, Varan said. Alone, with Alira, the land will guide us. It still remembers him. It hates him. Halgrim growled. You want to leave again? I must. The old warlord looked at his son, really looked at the runes burned into his skin, the way even the shadows bent around him, the sorrow behind his strength. Then go, Halgrim finally said. But don't ask for my men. I won't, Varan replied. They wouldn't survive. He turned to Alira. We leave at dusk. She nodded, and far away, across the bone rivers and black soil, Kaelor stood atop a mound of scorched corpses, eyes closed, whispering to the thing beneath the mountain. He opened his palm. Blood dripped into the cracked earth. I offer you their fear, he murmured. Now give me your flame. And the hollowed one answered. The ground beneath Kaelor's feet trembled, faint at first, like the breath of something ancient stirring in its sleep. Around him, the remnants of the village he'd slaughtered twitched with unnatural movement. Smoke slithered in reverse, curling into the sky as if drawn by invisible hands. Kaelor stood in the eye of this desecrated land, robes soaked with blood, his arms outstretched. His face, still human, was marred by the thin black lines etched across his skin, like veins drawn in ink, converging around his eyes and mouth. They pulsed gently now, alive with an internal light. The totem he had erected at the center of the village burned, not with fire, but with an ember light that flickered without consuming. Bones lined its base, skulls looked outward, mouths frozen in a scream. My master, Kaelor whispered, kneeling before it. I have fed you well. What now shall you give me in return? The light in the totem flickered once, twice, and then it flared. Kaelor's body arched back violently as a shadow burst from the earth, coiling around him, tightening like smoke-made flesh. His eyes rolled back. From his mouth came not words, but sounds. The howl of wind through dead trees, the screech of beasts that never walked the land, the moan of the mountain's bones. When it ended, he collapsed, gasping. But when he stood again, something was different. He no longer cast a shadow. Behind him, the air wavered as emissaries took form, thin, hollow-eyed beings with exposed ribs and masks sewn to their faces. They didn't speak. They didn't breathe. They waited. Kaelor turned to them, wiping blood from his lips. The warden comes, he said. Let him. He pointed south. But burn what he loves. Salt the memory. Make him suffer. The emissaries bowed and vanished like fog in sunlight. Meanwhile, at the edge of Vaelgard, Varan and Alira prepared to leave. Alira stood at the old stone gate, her hand resting on its ancient carvings. Once we cross into the black soil, the land cannot help you, she said. I don't need its help, Varen replied. I need its justice. He looked once more at the thrones behind him, the silent sentinels of the wrath. He bowed slightly. Guard this place until I return. Then they stepped into the cold. 3 nights later, they reached the first village, or what remained of it. Everything had been turned to glass. The trees, the houses, the people. Shattered silhouettes stood where families once lived. A child reaching upward, its glass arms severed and lying beside it. A mother huddled over something. Only shards remained. Varen stepped carefully through the ruin, heart heavy, Alira close behind. He knelt before a statue of a kneeling man, his face frozen in horror. This is Kaelor's doing, he said. No, Alira whispered. This is the Hallowed One. The flame beneath. Kaelor is just its vessel now. Varen's fingers trembled. He stood slowly. Then I'll become its executioner. As Varen stood amid the glass corpses, a sharp wind stirred the frost-covered fields. The air hummed with a quiet pressure, as if the land itself were holding its breath. Each step he took made a brittle crunch beneath his boots, too hollow, too fragile. Every building, every tree, even the smallest blade of grass had been scorched, transfigured into shimmering obsidian by something beyond fire. What kind of power can do this? He muttered. Alira knelt beside a shattered cradle, her hand hovering inches above the glass. Not power, she whispered. Hunger. The Hallowed One doesn't kill to destroy. It devours to erase. Varen turned, his face grim. Then it'll have to choke on me.
Hey, yo!
They pressed on through the village's remains. With each mile, the snow deepened, but not in the natural way. The flakes that fell were tinged with ash. The sky, once filled with stars, now held a dull, crimson haze that never seemed to move. By the time they reached the River Mern, its waters were black and still, like oil frozen mid-flow. Across its banks, the land was wrong. Trees bent in impossible angles, the soil cracked open in jagged veins of red light. Alira pointed to a ridge. We're close. Kaelor is near. But Varen's focus snapped to the shadows moving just beyond the trees. They were being watched. Then came the drum beat, slow and heavy, like a heartbeat echoing through the woods. Dum, dum, dum. Alira raised her hand. They found us. From between the trees, the emissaries emerged, more this time. A dozen or more, their skin tight over bone, black lines across their chests and throats. Their mouths didn't move, but the sound they made was deep and inside the skull, vibrating like a wasp's wings in the mind. Varen unsheathed his sword. The wrath within him surged to life, runes lighting along his skin, his breath misting even in the sulfur air. I'm done running, he said. The emissaries rushed forward, not like warriors, but like shadows uncoiling. Their fingers curled like claws. Their feet barely touched the ground. Alira drew her dagger, its edge made of antler and spirit iron. They clashed beneath the bleeding sky. Steel met bone. Wrath met hunger. One of the creatures lunged at Varen, its face splitting open like a peeled fruit. But he drove his sword through its chest, unleashing a blast of force that shattered the thing into ash. Alira danced among them, her blade singing. She moved like water, like wind, like she had trained her whole life for this moment. The battle was short, but it was a warning. As the last of the emissaries fell, their ash rose and coalesced into a single shape. A burning eye opened in the smoke. A voice, not Kaelor's, whispered, "You carry the wrath of trees and rivers. But I am the silence beneath all things. I do not fear you. I remember before wrath had a name." Then it vanished. Alira looked at Varen. "He knows you're coming." Varen nodded. "Good." The silence that followed was thick and uneasy, like the air just before a lightning strike. Varen lowered his sword, the glowing runes along his arms slowly dimming. The wrath receded, but it didn't rest. It trembled within him, alive and alert. Alira wiped the ash from her blade, her eyes still locked on where the burning eye had hovered in the smoke. That wasn't Kaelor speaking. "No," Varen said. "That was it, the Hallowed One." She gave a slow nod. "It's awake now." The Mern River was no longer passable by foot. The black, unmoving waters reflected no light. They moved upstream until they found a fallen tree stretched across a narrowing in the river, half rotted but stable enough. They crossed in silence. The forest on the far side was deathly still. The trees, twisted and bare, reached like fingers toward a blood-colored sky. No birds, no wind. Only the crunch of their footsteps. As they descended into the basin beyond, a strange sound rose from the earth. A low, ritualistic chant, almost like a hum, but carried in a dozen tones at once. Male, female, child, beast. It echoed through the ravines and rock hollows. They had reached Kaelor's sanctum. From the ledge, they looked down into a terraced valley, where smoke rose in rings around a sunken temple made of bone, basalt, and firelit stone. At its center stood Kaelor, arms raised, surrounded by his emissaries. Around him were bound figures, villagers likely captured in secret raids. They weren't screaming. They couldn't. Their mouths had been sewn shut. Alira's face darkened. He's offering them. To what end? Varen asked. To become something else, she whispered. He wants to ascend. As Kaelor raised his bloodied hands, the sky above them split, not with lightning but with shadow. A rift tore open, pulsing with a deep, red glow like magma seen through smoke. And then came the roar. Not sound, but sensation. Like teeth sinking into the world itself. Like despair being given breath. Varen's breath hitched. We don't have time to plan. No, Alira said, gripping his shoulder. We end this now. They descended quickly, moving between rocks and brush, weaving through the outermost rings of stone and ash. As they drew closer, the very air began to rebel. Gravity shifted. Light bent. The wrath inside Varen boiled against his ribs like a chained animal. Kaelor's voice rose over the chanting, triumphant and terrible. Oh, great Hollowed One, I give you all that is lost. I give you the forgotten. Take my soul and make me your flame. The rift widened. A limb, black and skeletal, formed of smoke and flickering ash, reached down from the sky. Varen drew his sword and stepped forward, light exploding from his runes. Kaelor? He shouted, his voice cutting through the ritual like a blade. Kaelor turned, his black-lined face cracking into a grin. Ah, he whispered. The warden arrives. He raised one hand. Too late.
To be continued. Like and subscribe.